Skate or Die was originally released in 1987 for a ton of computer systems and consoles. However, it gained more popularity when the skateboarding game hit the NES that same year. It was released by Konami and published under the Ultra Games label. Now by today's standards, the game is honestly not that good. But there weren't very many skateboarding games back then. You have to remember that this was back when the skateboarding trend with kids was at an all-time high. So of course as time went by, the hobby of skateboarding didn't completely fade, but it did plummet compared to what it used to be. Granted, skating is still a very popular thing in today's age. Now Skate or Die became somewhat of a legend amongst kids, even though once again it wasn't that good. Now after several decades passed, an up-and-coming developer wanted to revive the once popular franchise. And so in today's video, we'll be discussing the reboot of Skate or Die. In 2002, Electronic Arts put Criterion, the game mostly known for their Burnout series, up for the task to make a 3D reboot of Skate or Die. Now they were also the company responsible for the original Skate or Die for the NES. The game was to be released for the Xbox and PlayStation 2. Now the Skate or Die reboot was in development by the same team that also worked on Trick Style and Airblade. Two games very similar to the popular Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series. The only difference was that Trick Style used hoverboards. Now thanks to an article dedicated to Criterion Games published in Games TM Magazine issue 100 on September 2010, it stated, Criterion started talking to EA in 2002 and they asked if they'd be interested in doing a remake of the old Commodore 64 and NES game, Skate or Die. These guys wanted to make a skateboarding game, so we did. Now the story goes that after Acclaim filed for bankruptcy, Criterion reached out to EA to be the new publisher for Burnout, and in the end, they also pitched the new racing game titled Need for Speed Split Second, which EA greenlighted along with the new Skate or Die project. Now in a comment made by a Criterion game developer, he stated, after Burnout 2 Point of Impact in 2002, we were talking to EA Canada about doing a Need for Speed game, so we put together a pitch to do a stunt racing game called Need for Speed Split Second. Criterion had an interesting concept for the take of Skate or Die, and that was to let players freely move around levels on foot, choosing the best spot to start doing tricks on skateboard and entering shops to buy new boards and interacting with NPCs. Now for lack of better terms, it was basically a free roaming skateboarding game. Now for 2002, this was a very unique concept as most skateboarding games during that time were very straightforward and linear. One of the developers of the game stated, now in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater you were always on the board and it was always about tricks and high scores. But I wanted to explore what it was like to just go out and skate and have that feeling of just doing whatever you want. I wanted to be able to get off the board. Now unfortunately EA had even more ambitious plans for Skate or Die. They wanted to tie it in with the popular franchises such as Jackass and Dogtown. Now their goal was to make the game a skate version of Grand Theft Auto. Now I'll read a few statements made by the development team about the development of the game. The project was apparently subject to all kinds of pushing and pulling at the behest of the publisher. We were told, you can't just make a Tony Hawk game. It's gotta be like Grand Theft Auto. And that was the first time we were like, really? It's got to be open world. Well, what does that mean? Nobody really knew. The team at Criterion knew that it would have been impossible to meet EA's demands, so they decided to quit the project before it would become a development hell. We watched as the game changed directions before our very eyes, from classic skating game to a GTA inspired open world through an ingenious skating evolution concept, but the simplicity with which the various videos flow onto the screen belies the confusion and trauma the team went through in trying to score when the goalposts were moving so quickly and so frequently. Sullivan tells us a number of serious illnesses he went through as a result of the constant stress, and he wasn't alone, the team was in turmoil. We called a meeting with the EA guys, told them we were walking away from the game, and they went mad, threatening to sue us, put us out of business. There was a lot of anger and frustration. Then we got a call from the Need for Speed guys and they said, we can't work with you guys anymore. You just walked away and there's a shame on your company, so we can't talk to you. I remember coming back to my desk and there was a folder on my desktop called EA, and I just clicked delete. We learned a lot about how a game should be made, and we learned a lot about working with an external publisher. How we had to get our shit together earlier, but also how we had to stand our ground. Now in the end, Criterion and EA came to an agreement and signed a new agreement, and they started working together on Burnout 3 Takedown, which was released on September 2004 for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. And in August of the same year, Electronic Arts acquired Criterion and they became one of their internal development teams that later created Black, other Need for Speed titles, and new games in the Burnout series. Now supposedly Games TM is the only time the game was shown to publication, and I was unable to find an online copy, so if you manage to scour up one, be sure to share it with the rest of the internet. And that is what we know of the Skate or Die reboot. Thank you guys for watching. Check out some of our other videos if you'd like, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter and give us any suggestions for any future videos. And I'll catch you all next time.